Well, good morning, everyone. If everyone can take your seats, we're ready to begin All College Day for 2011. Always one of my favorite days of the year, and thanks to all of you for being here today. The first thing we're going to do today is something we should do more often, and that's honor our Cabrillo Governing Board. We have 7 men and women who are very unique among governing boards around California in that they receive absolutely no compensation for their service. So at a meeting earlier this month, it was actually Joe Nugent. So without further ado, I want to introduce the members of our governing board one by one. And the first member of our governing board is Susan True. Susan.
This is funny. That was funny. We're all back there saying, you go, no, you go. But we actually work really well together and are very mature. So welcome back. I think Brian hasn't had us do this before, but I'm winging it a little bit. But what strikes me as I walked up the stairs to the theater today is all the inspiration that's here with us. And you know, there isn't a lot of bright spot shining onto education right now in our state or in our country, but there's a lot of bright spots here inside Cabrillo. And So I just heard a student talk about his experience at financial aid. He didn't know he'd ever be able to go to college, and now we found out he's eligible for financial aid. He had a successful application processed. That's a bright spot. I just heard another student talk about learning.
I don't want to interrupt, but our board chair just went.
All right.
Thank you, Susan.
No way, I'm not finished yet. This other student learned that he loved history, and there's so many more stories. So I want you to know that as we deal with the pressures, sometimes gracefully, sometimes not, of the outside lack of wonderful spotlight on education, you have to look to each other for the bright spots here. All right, welcome back.
Well, how do you follow up on that? I just want to say also welcome back. I'm really looking forward to this year. As you may know, I'm the newest trustee. I represent San Lorenzo Valley and Scotts Valley. And I've just, yay! And just finished my first semester with you all, and it's really been a privilege and an honor to work with this board and to work with all of you. And I too am looking forward to some really bright spots this year. I'm excited about some of the new initiatives as we struggle to get through a difficult budget year. But I'm with you, and I'm looking forward to it, and I'm really honored to represent our district. So thanks. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Those of you who are dedicating your working life to Cabrillo's equal access to excellent education, I as a board member and all the board members are very, very proud to partner with you. Thank you.
Good morning and welcome back. As you know, I'm the veteran trustee on this board. I've been with you for 19 years. And in those 19 years, I've had an opportunity not only to do work with Cabrillo, but also at the state level and at the national level. And I have been so proud that at each level, I am able to brag about the faculty and the staff and the student success we experience here at Cabrillo. And so I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the work that you do. And I'm especially excited because I attended the Breakfast with Brian on Monday and also the Chalk workshop on Wednesday. And the ideas that you bring forth in terms of student success and the enthusiasm that you bring with that in terms of how we're going to make it work, it's going to make me even more proud. Thank you so much.
When we were told we were having to do some 30-second something, I never remember how long I've been on the board. So I called the person that knows everything about Cabrillo, but I couldn't get a hold of Nancy Brown, and so I had to I had to call the person who really knows everything, and that's Dominique, and she reminded me that I've been on the board for 18 years, and in that 18 years, I reflected on the many, I had to Google it. I'm going to go over my 30 seconds, Katie, so just forget it. I Googled 1993. It wasn't a very interesting year, but you'll be pleased to know that that year was the first attack on the World Trade Center, to give you perspective. And you'll also be delighted to know that Israel and the PLO signed a peace agreement for the 83rd time. So while a lot of things do change, a lot of things don't change, and over my time at Cabrillo, the one thing that has not ever changed is the dedication of our staff and faculty to provide the best learning experience for our students that's possible. And you're renowned for that throughout the state and throughout the country. And Cabrillo is a leader in many things and will continue to be. And my hope is that in 18 years, some other guy, old guy, will be up here saying the same thing. Thank you for all the work you do. It's a privilege and an honor to serve on the board. Thank you.
Let's thank the members of the governing board as Katie comes down. So the first thing that we're going to do, we want someone who is above reproach to pick the winner of the iPad 2. And that's you, Kate. You want to mix them up. Don't look.
I only put my name in here 6 times.
It wouldn't be good if you win.
It wouldn't be good. That would ruin that above reproach part, wouldn't it?
Right.
No, that's 2. Now I have just 1. We're 2nd grade. I'm still learning to count.
Why don't you do one?
Oh boy, it would be Shirley Flores Munoz.
Shirley, come on up.
Oh man, that's nice. Oh, Shirley.
Where is Shirley?
She doesn't want it?
Shirley, if you don't want it, I bet, is there someone else who would want it if Shirley doesn't want it? Tell you what, Shirley, you come stage here and I'll give that to you and we'll...
You can wrestle it from my sweaty fingers.
Yes. Let's welcome Katie Stonebloom, speaking on behalf of the governing board.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, good, the light is nice and bright here. Well, so much for the above reproach part. Thank you, Brian, for the wonderful introduction, and thank you to all my fellow board members. We miss Al Smith this morning. Al is our colleague on the board representing, I think, Aptos, part of Watsonville, and we cherish him as one of our fellow board members as well. So thank you for the wonderful introduction. And looking at the variety of folks on the board, it reminds us of the colorful threads that form the fabric of this remarkable institution. On behalf of the governing board, I want to thank each and every one of you for the contribution, not only of the work you do every day, but for the support you lend to decision making, in lending your voice to the complex process that keeps this place moving and adapting to the forces that affect our resources, our community, and our students. I want to thank each of you for attending one of Brian and Victoria's budget updates, participating in a committee, serving on SPRAC, speaking to us at a board meeting, being active in your bargaining unit, the CPC, the Faculty Senate, all the groups that form this remarkable institution. I thank you for encouraging and supporting students and contributing their voices. We on the board count on you. We count on you to inform us, to help us hear the multiple perspectives that support us in making the best decisions that we can. We have been facing decisions that tear at the very fabric of what we are as a college, and will continue to face decisions like these for many months to come. We're your elected representatives. These are pretty remarkable people that I serve with on this board. I have deep respect for each of them and knowledge and experience and the dedication that they bring. And I want to tell you how grateful we are for the work that you do with us. We very much feel that governance is shared here. Our college has been very nimble in responding to the budget challenge, though it's hard to feel self-congratulatory as we watch our resources diminish and our course catalog shrink. But as my colleague Gary Reese is fond of quoting, let us not let a crisis go unexploited. I love that one. I hold that one in my head many times every day. While our resources diminish, the needs of our students and our community do not. When I came to the board in 1994, our challenge was access. Our goal was to develop a student population that mirrored the ethnic and socioeconomic makeup of our community. We have largely met that goal, and now we confront a new one, the goal of completion. It's my hope that we can direct our institutional resilience and responsiveness to address this challenge. We know how important the college is to the vitality of our community. The Institute for Higher Education Leadership and Policy recent study on completion and racial gaps in the Monterey Bay region tells us that while 35% of our white students meet their educational goals in our community colleges within 6 years, only 15% of our Latino students do so. While that disparity is disturbing, the overall picture is even more so. It is clear that we will not be getting more resources in the near future. It is also clear that our students can't wait for the economy to turn around. So the challenge is this: how can we harness the nimbleness and dexterity we have demonstrated in facing financial crisis and apply it to the challenge of assuring that more students establish and achieve their goals in a timely fashion with no more resources than what we have right now? How can we do it better in each of our classrooms with each of our students? I am a teacher, and I promised I wouldn't do a Boehner up here. I really did. I know that I teach under very different circumstances to students with different needs and different lives than when I began my career. I must teach to expectations that are much more demanding and with fewer human resources than in years past. Technology in my classroom means that this Tuesday, the day before school, my chalkboard was replaced with $12 shower stall laminate from Home Depot for a whiteboard. Love it. Internet for my two 15-year-old blue and white Fat Macs has yet to be connected, but my students come with the same eagerness and willingness to learn, and they deserve to have their dreams nurtured. I want to pass them on to you with the faith and knowledge that this is the best educational institution out there. I know that because we work together to make it so. And that what makes it so is our human capital, all of you. I know that Brian is going to talk later on about precious objects that are symbolic to us. When I was born, my family lived in the tiny community of French Camp, just south of Stockton. If you've ever driven I-5 to Sacramento, you may have passed through and sneezed and not really known it was there. But we lived there until I was 5, and there was no kindergarten in the school there. So I didn't attend school until first grade when my family moved into Stockton when I was 6 years old. Now I'm suddenly feeling very old because my first grade teacher insisted that each of us bring a cigar box to school. And I realized suddenly that I may have to explain to some of you what a cigar box is. But it was a little cardboard box with a little lid that opened up. That was to keep our first grade materials in. And until I left to college, I kept that cigar box with my 2 big fat first grade pencils and that big box of those big fat industrial strength indestructible crayons, right? I think they made them that big so you couldn't stuff them up your nose. And they lasted forever. But to this day, on the first day of school, I can smell crayons. You know, it just, school starting just has that magic aroma of crayons. So I encourage all of you, think of your students, go out there and greet them, and smell the crayons and feel that energy. And have a great year.
Let's once again thank our full governing board. We are so fortunate to have wonderful leaders. Many of us have a chance to visit other colleges around the state, and they're not blessed with the caliber of leaders we are. It's something we shouldn't take for granted at Cabrillo. And one of the highlights every year of All College Day is honoring our own. And what we're going to do now is honor our Meritorious Service Award winners. And our Vice Presidents, Renee Kilmer, Dennis Bailey Fournier, and Victoria Lewis are going to help present. And also Catherine LaChance from the Meritorious Service Committee is going to assist in the presentations. And before we dive into one of these highlights, I want to thank our whole Staff Development Committee, Francine Van Meter and the whole committee, who put together our week of coming together for our students. Francine and the Staff Development Committee, will you stand up so we can acknowledge you? And I want to do another set of acknowledgments that we always do, but sometimes we wait till the end. And I want to acknowledge the people who make things go so smoothly behind the scenes, our production crew today. Cleo, Skylar, Fabian, Mark, and Poco working behind the scenes to make all of us look good on stage. And next I want to thank the membership of the Meritorious Service Awards Committee, the Chair Catherine LaChance, and committee members Tatiana Bakretz, Zarmina Dastagir, Paul Harvell, Martha Orr, and Carol Wahlberg for their service on the committee and the hard work that goes into selecting among many great applicants. And the Meritorious Service Awards honor individuals within the Cabrillo College community who have demonstrated extraordinary leadership, have made exceptional contributions to Cabrillo, and who have implemented significant positive change for the benefits of our students and our staff. This year's Meritorious Service Award recipients exemplify all these qualities and more. The first award assisting in presentation will be Dennis Bailey Fournier. And among many other things, this staff member is being recognized for tireless dedications shown to various positions held during a long tenure at Cabrillo College. This person's responsibilities, as is true for many of us, have expanded in recent years, dividing limited time, yet the individual manages to know the who, what, where, and the how of the division in which they work. Colleagues describe this individual as radiating a calm presence in the midst of a whirlwind and taking care of business in a most unassuming yet effective way. I think that really sums up this individual very well. Ever present and willing to serve, this staff member seems to do it all with style and grace. He stays into the night to help students and always follows through with generosity and willingness to assist students, faculty, staff, and productions on campus. Just a few of the things included in this person's capabilities are setting up and running lights, overseeing audio, overseeing theater arts technical needs, as well as those of music, dance, and outside rental contracts. Hiring labor for load-ins, tech rehearsals, performances, and knowing many of the details of all of Cabrillo's many stage users, in addition to managing the music recital hall, the Black Box, and Crocker theaters. And though you may not know it, this individual, I didn't know this, is also an accomplished musician. Not only does he build and stage productions, he plays in them, with noted appearances playing violin in Sue Brown's concert in the Schilling Forum and playing banjo in the pit orchestra of the Robber Bridgegroom production. Most reliably found backstage, making every event run smoothly. That's exactly what he's doing today. As his colleague aptly put it, if you want something done in the theater, just ask Mark. I'd like to congratulate Mark Hopkins as the winner of this year's first Meritorious Service Award. Say a word or two.
Thank you very much. I don't deserve it, but thank you.
Congratulations. You absolutely deserve it. Victoria Lewis is going to assist in presenting our second Meritorious Service Award. I want to begin by saying this individual has been working at Cabrillo, and I have to say the script said 15, but I think it's actually even more than that. I think more than 20 wonderful years. Described as self-motivated and willing to help the department in times of crisis. When this individual's department found itself short-staffed due to a vacancy, this person volunteered to take on additional duties and volunteered to train the interim incumbents who were helping out. This individual's manager has the following to say about this person. Though her duties and responsibilities have varied, her positive attitude, strong work ethic, exemplary dedication to customer service, and her commitment to the servant leadership philosophy has made this individual a standout employee worthy of recognition. Whether it's special projects that arise or timelines that are unexpectedly shortened, she is the first to volunteer to work long hours or come in on a vacation day in order to help the department meet its deadlines on behalf of our students and staff. She is known among staff as the go-to person for training, guidance, and to recount historical details on a multitude of business-related projects. Most impressively, she does this with a smile, patience, and grace. For all of the above and for her dedication to excellence, I'm pleased to congratulate Becky Soleil as our second Meritorious Service Award winner. Our next Meritorious Service Award is going to be presented by Renee Kilmer. Among the many things for which this individual was being nominated is an unwavering dedication to student learning. The recipient of this award has worked at Cabrillo for 15 years. One nominator of this recipient described him as the inspiration behind the physics program at Cabrillo. He is constantly looking for new ways to make the concepts and techniques of experimental physics accessible to his students. He actively pursues several avenues of non-traditional lab experience designed to get students not only thinking about physics, but also about the scientific method. An example of his lab innovations include falsification labs. I love that term, falsification labs, in which students are given a reasonable hypothesis to test, only to find that the data they gather shows the hypothesis to be incorrect. He has even presented these falsification labs at the American Association of Physics Teachers national meeting. His demonstrations have also been published in the APPT Journal. For the past 3 years, this nominee has been an integral part of Cabrillo College's Energy Academy as part of the Science, Technology, and Energy Expanding Potential, or STEEP project, funded by the National Science Foundation. He has been invited to speak at the January 2012 AAPT meeting presenting the Energy Academy and its accomplishments. In addition to being described as a tremendous asset to the physics department, he is also an absolute pleasure to have as a colleague. Please join me in congratulating our third Meritorious Service winner, John Welch.
Thanks, everybody. Well, I think that I've been here not 15 years, 12, 13, I don't know how long I've been here, but before this place I was here maybe 2 years of my longest job, and I've been here so long because I love this community, and so, yeah, thank you, and I'm glad to be here.
Victoria Lewis is going to assist in the presentation of the Student Leadership and Service Award. The story behind the recipient of this year's Student Leadership Award is one of transformation and breakthroughs. When she began her role in student leadership at Cabrillo, her nominators described her as follows: shy, calm, and reserved, but with a spark of determination, she jumped into the limelight of student leadership and community service. She didn't speak much then, but the words she shared were thoughtful and meaningful. Her first major project as a student senator was to chair the Welcome Week Committee in September of 2009. She successfully organized a series of activities that engaged hundreds of students, including music, club tabling, and a barbecue for 350. 2 years later, she continues to serve on the ASCC Student Senate. At this point in her story, she is shy and reserved no more. She is now a glowing center of inspiration for fellow students. She attends the monthly meetings of the Student Senate for the statewide organization in Sacramento. She developed a PowerPoint presentation to educate fellow senators on the statewide organization and how it operates. As Cabrillo's one voting delegate, she's traveled to the General Assembly in Southern California, where she read, debated, and voted upon many important resolutions for our students. She attended the California Community College League Legislative Conference in January, and let me tell you, when we go around and meet with our representatives, they're much more interested in what the students have to say than what I have to say, so it was a tremendous asset having this student and other students meeting with legislators. She assisted governing board member Rebecca Garcia in presenting a workshop at the annual State Latina Leadership Network Conference, a wonderful opportunity for a mentor to work with one of our students, Rebecca working with this student. This individual is described as articulate, creative, and organized, a true professional. She is an AB 540 student who has overcome the challenges presented to her. She takes a proactive approach to being successful at Cabrillo and is an exemplary representative of the students we have at Cabrillo. Now about to begin her third year as ASCC Student Senator and her second full term as legislative representative, she is described as warm, expanding flame of endless energy and inspiration who has grown into an assertive and very forceful leader. She is also a good listener, patient and accepting of her constituents' requests and representing them even when they are not necessarily her own personal beliefs. Please join me in applauding Alma Gabriela Gabby Avila on her receipt of the College Student Leadership Award.
I'm shaking. I didn't expect this. I really didn't know anything about this. Really appreciate it. I'm truly grateful to my advisors, Florence and Cesario, because if it weren't for them, I guess I would have quit the first semester. I really wasn't expecting this, not because, well, I really wasn't expecting this, sorry, I'm really nervous, because what I've done is, I've done it because I like it, because I feel empowered to do it, and I just feel there's a necessity for everyone to be represented out there. Thank you so much, appreciate it.
Our next award is the Billy Paul Award. The recipient's story begins as a Cabrillo College student who later transferred to UCSC and has now worked at Cabrillo for approximately 12 years. This individual meets the needs of students, faculty, staff, and community members professionally with a smile, as if it were the most important thing in the world that they had to do. Think about that. That's a good example for all of us to meet everyone we come into contact this semester as if they're the most important person in the world. This nominee has been described as a truly outstanding individual, one who is brilliant in so many ways: professional, knowledgeable, competent, emotionally intelligent, trustworthy, invariably helpful, and friendly. And in this person's position, They go far beyond the call of duty. A short list including, it's really not that short, it's a long list, scheduling classrooms, figuring out equipment and copying needs, assisting students, assisting faculty with course materials. In emergency situations, unclogging a plugged toilet. Helping faculty members with keys and doors, lost, found, and otherwise, coordinating parking permits, taking ill students to her office until family can arrive, providing translations, serving as an ambassador between Cabrillo College and the Watsonville community. In summary, this individual provides the resources to students, instructors, and staff with friendliness, warmth, and consistent exuberance for whatever she is doing for them. She has been described as pivotal to the smooth running of the Watsonville Center, our go-to person. There's not a question she cannot answer. Watsonville superstar, a gem to our community, irreplaceable. She adds to an atmosphere conducive to efficacy, collaboration, and learning, and is also involved in the Cabrillo and local community, from broadcasting to theater performances to being a Puente program mentor. She is a strong advocate for students, especially Cabrillo's underrepresented population. She manages the Borrow a Book program and helps with the Women's Educational Success program for the Watsonville Center. Finally, this nominee is described as an amazing person, one who treats everyone, including homeless people who come into the Watsonville Center with needs, with kindness and great respect. It is my pleasure to congratulate Olga Diaz on the receipt of the Billy Powell Award.
I guess one of the things that I can say is that Cabrillo has been my home for many years, 10 years as a full-time employee. I've been here since I graduated from high school, starting as a student, assistant, while I worked my way through transferring to UCSC. And one of my main motivations has always been to serve my community, and that's why I love my job. Thank you, everybody.
Renee Kilmer will assist in the presentation of our final two awards who go to members of our faculty. And the first award for faculty is the John Hurd Award for Teaching Excellence. Fellow instructors, staff members, and current and past students from across the state have written in support of this instructor. The file was very thick. This person is described as a phenomenal instructor who is not only dedicated to Cabrillo and its students, but also to our entire ecosystem. A role model, a mentor, a friend. This individual has a strong commitment to teaching and co-creating with the students a supportive learning environment. Here's a story to support that. At the beginning of the fall semester, this instructor led an exercise for everyone in the class to state their own course objectives, both wanted and unwanted. At the end of the semester, the instructor handed out a sheet of paper with the course objectives that the students had outlined, asking for their personal evaluations as to whether the class has succeeded in meeting those objectives, and 95% of the objectives had been met with excellence. That's astounding when you think about it. This instructor has been described as dedicated, inspiring, compassionate, encouraging, reflective, and intelligent. In addition to being an instructor, this individual has been involved in the annual Mesa Student Leadership Retreat for the past 11 years, has presented at statewide and national conferences, including the National Science Foundation STEM Conference and the American College and University President's Climate Commitment webinar, as well as the Bioneers Conference. Co-founded and is the faculty advisor of the Cabrillo Bike Cooperative. For 3 years has been the lead instructor of the Cabrillo Summer Energy Academy, is in her 4th year of 5 as part of the National Science Foundation grant, and is instrumental as a member of the Cabrillo Climate Initiative Task Force. In addition to her bike ride to and from Cabrillo on a regular basis, I imagine all of you have seen her on the bike at one time or another, a student writes, "I was privileged to witness a team of students and faculty from various colleges, this instructor among them, arriving on bicycle at the Campus Sustainability Conference at Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, all from points north, south, and hundreds of miles away. In summary, this nominee is described as one of Cabrillo's shining stars, an author of creative and innovative curriculum that is highly responsive to the needs of society and the engineering profession, a dedicated partner in several grant efforts to support students in the sciences, and a caring, inspiring teacher. Humbly and without ego, she inspires the best work from people, whether students or colleagues. Please join me in congratulating Karen Grappi on her receipt of the John D. Hurt Award for Teaching Excellence.
Like all the other speakers, the first time I came to Cabrillo, I came as an art student, and I took art classes while I was studying engineering, getting my master's at San Jose State. And from the first day I came here, I just wanted to be here. And I'm so grateful that I get to come here every day and be a part of this amazing group of people doing this amazing work. Thank you.
Our final award today is the Floyd L. Younger Award. This recipient's story began at Cabrillo in 1973. As an adjunct faculty member, they took over the job of running a one-person department. This individual immediately began revamping the model program, writing new courses, and re-energizing the department to the point where it was necessary to start hiring more adjunct instructors to keep up with the leap in student demand. So determined was this individual to find the right people that would make Cabrillo's program one of the most vibrant in the California Community College system, that in one case, this individual went to San Jose State University to hunt down an instructor who was taking a nap in the faculty conference room, woke up that instructor and interviewed them right then and there. Today, this program at Cabrillo is one of the most successful in the state and the nation, regularly sends majors who transfer to Berkeley, UCLA, Harvard, Yale, and Stanford. The success of this program is due not only to this individual's administrative prowess, but principally due to her excellence as a teacher. She goes the distance for students and faculty members alike, from driving students to UCLA in preparation to transfer to making time for younger faculty who solicit her advice in pedagogy, curriculum development, dealing with challenging students, or in life. As an administrator, she served on nearly every major committee at Cabrillo and was president of the Faculty Senate while the groundbreaking legislation AB 1725 was being implemented, which meant integrating major legal challenges into Cabrillo's institutions. Said one nominator, she has navigated one of the most challenging times at Cabrillo with, at times, patience, humor, ire, disgust, outrage, persistence, and a dogged determination to save what she could and make what we have better. As a teacher, her nominator states, she infuses a classroom with a culture of academic rigor and scholarship, salted liberally with her dry wit and genuine compassion for her students. Annually, she is cited by Alpha Gamma Sigma, our Student Honor Society, as an exemplary Cabrillo instructor. Testament to this excellence would be a 5-page recommendation letter we received from one of her many former students. He writes, in a decidedly Socratic fashion, she would push her students to take responsibility for their reasoning and would not hesitate, I can speak from personal experience, she would not hesitate to point out flaws in her students' logic. She did not push for pushing's sake. Her motivation came from a deep passion for the subject matter at hand. When she pushed it was as if to say, look at how wondrous these ideas are. Look at how incredible your mind is in being able to grasp them. Don't give up. And it is because of her passion for the subject and for her students that the former Cabrillo student, after transferring to Berkeley for his bachelor's, is now pursuing his PhD in philosophy at Stanford, with the goal to teach philosophy at the university level. This dean and instructor retired at the end of the 2010-11 school year, and we are incredibly grateful for 38 years of irreplaceable and exceptional service to Cabrillo and its students. I'm honored and personally touched to present Nancy A. Brown with the Fully Younger Award for teaching excellence.
Brian hopes I'm not speechless. I somehow doubt that. Thank you very much for this, for all the years of friendship and service you've provided. Thanks.
Thanks again. Thank you to all of our presenters. And let's take a moment to thank all of our Meritorious Service Award winners today. It's been a great Flex Week with a focus on coming together for our students. And I want to spend a few moments talking about sharing the Cabrillo story and the stories we tell. And one story that popped into my mind when Nancy came across the stage was the first time I met Nancy when I was a candidate to be your president, and a whole group of people from Santa Cruz went to Southwest Missouri. Now pause and picture that image. You almost need a passport to go from Santa Cruz to where we were living at that time. And Nancy, sometimes, as we know, has that gruff exterior, but our daughter then was either 3 or 4. And I'll always remember Celia walked up to Nancy without a word, handed a book, and sat on her lap. And those are the kind of stories that we want to think about as we prepare for a really challenging year. And storytelling is important to all of us when you think about it. The stories we tell are about our history, they're about our identity, they're about our memory, and we all tell stories. And if you can bring the house lights up a little bit, I'm curious how many of you would consider yourselves to be professional storytellers? Raise your hand if you think you're a professional storyteller. I think anyone in a classroom is a professional storyteller. Anyone who's interacting with people on our campus, you are professional storytellers. And when you think about the history of Cabrillo and the stories that are told, my thoughts go to Bob Swenson, our founding president. And I know a lot of you had a chance to meet Bob. Some of you didn't have that privilege, but Bob will live on in some of the stories that he told. And when you think about Bob's storytelling skills, when you would sit down and ask Bob a story, the story about why our main campus, or our first new campus was in Aptos, is an example of the great stories. And you would say, Bob, can you tell me the story about how we got to be here? And the great story of politics and geography, that if we would have been too close to Watsonville, there would have been a problem in Santa Cruz. If we had been in Santa Cruz, there would have been a problem in Watsonville. And that story tells a lot about our college and how geographically we're almost centered in, and part of the story is we're not quite centered in the county, but close. And that allows us both geographically and politically to be one of the few organizations throughout the county that can bring other people together. So that story is one of many stories you hear from Bob. And when I talked to Bob, you didn't say, Bob, can you show me those PowerPoint slides? You know, good storytelling can have some technological tools, but really good storytelling is not about technology or gimmicks. It's about understanding what makes for a good story. And I would encourage you to read a book called Storytelling is Best Practice by Andy Goodman. I've heard Andy present a couple of times and has some great ideas about how to tell good stories, some of which I think he would appreciate that I'm borrowing today. So house lights up a little bit more. I want to be able to see the hands here. Here's a great story that I guarantee every single one of you know. And some of you already know, so don't give it away. I don't want anybody to blurt it out, but raise your hand when you think you know this story. Starts with an at-risk Midwestern kid living not with parents, but with an extended family in the Midwest. Anybody know the story so far? Gets hit in the head. Kind of a tough thing happened, and a lot of good stories are about overcoming an obstacle, and an extreme weather event resulted in the injuries. Decides to go on a trip. Takes an exotic journey to a faraway city, a mineral-based economy in the city. Does that ring any bells so far? The youth is accompanied by 3 homeless adults. And part of the story, you have to have villains. She encounters a malevolent CEO of a fringe organization who tries to kill her. Okay? Everybody know the story? I think you do. So most of our stories may not be heard by millions of people and retold for generations, but this story sort of gives the elements of things that you know about what makes a good story, and elements of the story of the Wizard of Oz. You hear one line and you know what it means. You're not in Kansas anymore, okay? As a native of Missouri, I'm not sure why she wanted to go back to Kansas, but she did. There's no place like home. That resonates, doesn't it? This is a home for us at Cabrillo. So when we go to other colleges, when I chair a site visit, I want to click my heels and come back because there's no place like Cabrillo. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my. And maybe my favorite, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. So you hear that line and you know right away that there's something going on. Now our stories may not be, as I said, remembered for generations and heard by millions, but we all have stories in our life that we can tell. I want to share one that I think everyone can relate to, because how many of you have had a screaming kid of your own? You don't know why, all of a sudden, our early childhood faculty can talk about the one time that one of my kids melted down in 8 years. They've been with us everywhere. It would be with a meeting of the early childhood faculty, wouldn't it? And I'm sure there's still faculty discussions about, that was interesting how he handled that. And I can tell you I didn't handle it quite the way I would have had we been in private. But in this story, a woman walks in with a child who is just screaming at the top of her lungs, and the guy's waiting for his sandwich at the deli, and he hears the woman say very calmly, "It's going to be okay, Jennifer. We're going to get the bread, the milk, the honey, and then we're going to go home." And he says, "Wow, that's really cool. I'm going to try to catch up and see how she's able to do that." And there's several carts between him and the woman, but he hears her down the aisle, "Jennifer, we have the bread. We're going to get the honey. We're going to go pay for these things. It's going to be okay, Jennifer." And he thinks, wow, I don't think she's still screaming uncontrollably. He finally catches up at the register, and he hears her say, again, "We're going to pay for these things and go home. It's going to be okay, Jennifer." And he finally catches up and says, "I'm just so impressed with how calm you are with little Jennifer, and I want to know how you do it." And if you've been a parent in that situation, or if you've seen that situation, I think you won't be surprised by her answer. I'm Jennifer. So we all have stories like that in our lives. And one thing I would challenge you to do, and there's a place in the program that later today over the weekend, think about 5 stories you tell about you. And I'm on thin ice because my wife is here. But one of the stories that many of us tell is how we met our spouse or partner. I tell a different story than Christina tells, and I want to tell you that they're both true. The time I finished a marathon when I had never run more than 10 miles at one time. That's one of my stories. I wouldn't recommend it. It probably is revealing in some ways that are not flattering to do something like that. How we found Cabrillo when we were on vacation. Driving down the Pacific Coast Highway on a January day coming from the Midwest, it looked pretty good. I went to high school and also the University of Missouri with Brad Pitt. We both came to California, so much in common. Brad Pitt and me. Not all of our stories are fun stories or things that we would necessarily choose. I mean, for me, being a cancer survivor before I was 30 is a story that certainly guides some of my perspectives in life. At Cabrillo, there are stories we all tell. And another part in the handout today in our program is to think about 5 stories that you tell about Cabrillo. Your first day. Most of us have a good first day story. And we heard from some of our Meritorious Service Award winners good stories about how they got here. Why Cabrillo is a special place. That's a good story. And for anyone who comes to Cabrillo from out of town and you're making the arrangements to connect utilities or whatever, and people say, where do you work? You work at Cabrillo. What do you hear? You hear a wonderful, unsolicited story about how special Cabrillo has been. How we treat each other. Again, when colleagues go other colleges to either on accreditation visits or to help, we always come back with a newfound appreciation that we treat each other very well here. We're kind to one another. And so many special student memories that all of us have that 1 or 2 or 10 stories about how students' lives have been changed by the work we do. Maybe a colleague who has made a difference. That came across very clearly on our Meritorious Service Award winners, that our winners didn't do things by themselves, that they had help in doing that. So the importance of colleagues. The Lakota tribe is a good example about how to honor the stories, and many of you are familiar with the idea that they would have different artifacts that represented stories that they would carry with them in what they called the sacred bundle. And they were a nomadic tribe, so where they were in one year and where they were in another would vary, but wherever they went, they had that sacred bundle of stories to take with them. And it wasn't just one person who told the stories. In some ways, my job is to share stories throughout the community, but we wouldn't be very effective if we just have 1 or 2 or 3 storytellers. The key is that everyone in the tribe has that core of stories that they can tell and share. Jane Goodall is a good example of this, and her mission is refreshingly clear. It's about saving the gorillas. You know, the mission statement, if Jane Goodall had the whole come together meeting, what's our mission statement? It would be save gorillas. Chimps. Primates. We have some anthropologists here, so. See, I've given rise to another story, right? The president said they were gorillas. Am I safe with primates? Chimps. But the work is hard. There are a lot of things stacked against her in saving the chimps. And she was asked one time, do you ever lose hope? The work is hard, the odds are stacked against you. And she shared a concept called her sacred bundle of hope, that she's gathered her own artifacts to remember why she's never going to give up in her cause. And she says, I pull the feather from a peregrine falcon, and for the ornithologist, if that's not a peregrine falcon, Google Images said it is, but she takes from that bundle the feather of a peregrine falcon and remembers that there was a mine where the land had been totally ruined, and it was reclaimed when people thought it couldn't be, and now the falcons live there, so that feather reminds her that there is hope. Now, she has some things that most of us wouldn't have, but we have similar artifacts. She has some of the pebbles from Nelson Mandela when he was in prison. If you've seen the movie Invictus or read Nelson Mandela's story, one thing he did was smuggle in stones so that he could take out as a memory of the growth and opportunities he had even while imprisoned. And finally, she has in her sacred bundle a coin purse that she takes out and says, I was on a television program and someone asked me about the difficulties, and there was footage of a chimp who had been taken away from his or her parents, and it was so sad that a little girl said, I saw you on TV, and I don't have much, but here's all the money I have. Buy a doll for that chimp. So the sacred bundle of hope is a very powerful concept, and I would challenge all of you to think about you already have a sacred bundle of hope. You may not have thought about it that way, but consciously think, what are 4 or 5 things in this coming semester that are part of my sacred bundle of hope to carry me forward, and the impact that identifying those things can have on others. An example is our own Renee Kilmer. Spent some time in Borneo, inspired certainly in part by Jane Goodall. And here she is with Krista, who she adopted. So an example about how the ripples can move outward if you're focused on what really matters. So we already have a sacred bundle of hope at Cabrillo, and it's a big one. And I am very appreciative of several of your colleagues who I know spent hours preparing some stories and giving me permission to share them with you today. And in the interest of time, I want you to go, I'll share, and it's in the program, our blog, where we have the full stories of our colleagues, but I'm going to share briefly some stories that certainly belong in our Sacred Bundle of Hope. And the first is Becky Soleil, and one of our Meritorious Service Award winners today. And Becky has been at Cabrillo for more than 2 decades now. And when she shared her story, she recalled her first day at Cabrillo and all the excitement, and it was her birthday was coming up, and part of her story is that she was told, on your birthday you bring a cake. That's our tradition here. And she says, you know, the story of the business office has always been about the food. And still is. And Becky shares that in her years, she's known so many different people, so many different systems. In some ways, everything has changed. In some ways, nothing has, because about that core and the commitment to our students and to each other. And she even notes that, sadly, some of her coworkers have even passed away, but she'll go through her desk and see a floppy disk, remember those? That reminds her of someone, or a note from one of her colleagues. So that certainly is part of a sacred bundle of hope that Becky has in her own desk. And she finished her story by saying that writing down my story made me realize that I love my job. Now, she said I don't always like it. I think we can all identify. But that the reason that Cabrillo has been so outstanding for all these years is, at the end of the day, it's really not about us. It's about what we do for our students. And that's why Cabrillo has been a special place from Becky's viewpoint, and will continue to be. So where's Becky? Let's thank her for sharing the story. Stand up, Becky. Tama Bolton has a story that is not unlike many of our students. She was a single mom who went back to school at the College of Southern Idaho, intimidated, overwhelmed, having more things than any one person should possibly be asked to do. But she was touched by student services personnel at the College of Southern Idaho, and also the faculty who helped her navigate that process. And she was so impressed with the difference that the student services professionals made in her life, she chose that as her career, and completed her master's degree at Oregon State. And in an interesting twist, Tama came from the College of Southern Idaho and is now at Cabrillo. A Cabrillo graduate is now the Director of Admissions and Records at the College of Southern Idaho. So a nice twist to the story. And an example of what she said, or what she wrote, "We are who we are by the grace of those that showed us the way." Wonderful story. Where is Tama? Thank you, Tama, for sharing your story. Flor Chacon tells a wonderful story about her experience. She's a Cabrillo graduate, and who else is a Cabrillo graduate here? How many of our numbers? Look at all the hands in the air. So Flor's story is one that is shared with many of you. Came to Cabrillo in 2001, and her life was changed by people who mentored her and helped her. She went to UCSC and then has fortunately returned to Cabrillo and is now nearing completion of her master's degree. And I got to see Flor in action along with Cesario last week at our annual Student Senate retreat. And Flor's story about never underestimate the small things I saw very vividly in her interactions with students at the Student Senate retreat. That she remembers the kind word, the small encouragement that may have seemed like nothing to the person who offered it, that made all the difference for her. And she's certainly practicing what she preaches and being aware of the small things and working with students. So Flor Chacon, thank you for sharing your story. Diane Goody works in human resources, and her story is one of many about actions and contributions outside of our immediate community. She has served for many years on a human resources group in our community that provides access to people who have disabilities. And this year will be the 21st workshop of a group, and Diane has been very involved. And also one of our faculty members, Larry Thronson, has helped do translation for hearing impaired. So where is Diane today? Diane, thank you for sharing your story. Next story comes from Jennifer Lee, psychology faculty member, and who you see in the picture. And Jennifer, tell me if I get the names wrong for your daughter. Ben is featured in the story, and the daughter is Serena, if I recall. Sam, okay. I need to check your story. The focus, though, in her story is on Ben. Sam. I just created another story. President can't remember two names. Jennifer says that Sam needed enough dental work that it reminded them of the character in the James Bond movie. What's his name? Jaws. So he had always been a wonderful patient in the dental office, but there was so much work he had to actually be anesthetized, and when he woke up, he wasn't his usual chipper self. And Jennifer has a wonderful memory of the nurse being very kind and patient and working with him, and then the nurse looked over and said, I think I know you. You work at Cabrillo, don't you? And Jennifer said, yes, I teach psychology. And the student said, I had your class, and you were pregnant with your second child, who was Sam. So our student was now taking care of the child of a faculty member who had been providing a vital service to the student. So our students do take care of us in so many different ways. If you think about it, if you go to the dentist, if you go to the doctor, if you go so many different places in our community, students who we've offered support and guidance are now taking care of us. So Jennifer, will you stand up so we can thank you for sharing your story? Grant Lemon shared another story that I get to pass along to you today, and it goes back to 1989. What happened in Santa Cruz and Cabrillo in 1989? The Loma Prieta earthquake. And Grant has very vivid memories of being one of the first people back on campus after an unbelievable disaster, and going from building to building to make sure that no one was injured or in danger, and seeing books on the floor all over the place, seeing ceiling tiles on the floor, seeing rebar from buildings. And after being first on the scene and making sure that no one was in danger, began a long process, and Grant talks about day after day of 12-hour days with he and his colleagues working to make the campus safe and open again for our students. And amazingly, the semester completed on time, even after the earthquake. I understand it started a little late, but because of the efforts of Grant and many of you who are here today, that crisis became one of our finest hours at Cabrillo, that we didn't let it derail us from serving our students. But where is Grant? Let's thank Grant for passing along his story. There he is. Thank you, Grant. Barbara Shingai in Human Resources has a story about using skills from one opportunity to another, where she worked in healthcare at Watsonville Community Hospital and played a role in working with the regional occupational programs in starting healthcare programs that are now feeder programs for Cabrillo College students. So one of many examples of individuals who have brought skills from other parts of their lives and brought it to Cabrillo to help our students prepare. And Barbara is proud to see our new health and wellness building and a continuation and expansion and evolution of those programs serving our students. So where is Barbara so we can thank her for sharing her story? Thank you, Barbara. Wanda Garner. It's all about the teaching at the end of the day. And I think the first time I spoke to this group when I was a candidate to be your president, I said something I still think is true, that the main event in any college or school is in the classroom, and all of the rest of us play an important role at the turnstiles, getting people into the classroom so that they're ready to learn. And that's not in any way minimizing the role that everyone else plays, but what happens in the classroom is vital to the success of our students. And Wanda at first didn't think she had a story, and she wanted to share stories about other people, and as we talked about it, I really think this is her story, that Wanda and I had the discussion. We both miss teaching, that in a lot of ways, those of you who are in the classroom have one of the most rewarding jobs you can ever have, and those of us who do other things always miss being in the classroom. And one way that Wanda has been able to have an impact in the classroom in a very important way is by hiring or being involved in the hiring now of, I think, 31 out of 46 of the full-time faculty in the NAS division. So very important role, yes. And Wanda shared an email from a faculty member who started at Cabrillo and for personal and professional reasons has gone to a university setting to teach, and sent a wonderful email to Wanda saying, I am so much better prepared than all of the other new faculty members, that what happens at Cabrillo and the focus on teaching and what you shared with me made me much better prepared than many of the other faculty members who have been here at the university for a long time. And we know that's true. So Wanda's had an important impact on shaping the faculty at Cabrillo. And where's Wanda? Let's thank her for sharing a story with us today. A member of our faculty, Jennifer Cass, shares a story about 3 years as chair of the curriculum committee. And I haven't had the chance to hear the backstory, but Jennifer shares in her story that apparently the first meeting was a little tumultuous. So that's a story I want to hear more about, the first curriculum meeting. But Jennifer says when she was first asked, it was a little bit overwhelming, but she had tremendous support from Renee Kilmer, Dale Adius, and many other colleagues, and came to understand the importance of asking questions. And I love her thought, I would never have thought of that in working with colleagues, that people would have ideas and the collaboration that takes place. And when I was sitting in our faculty senate meeting earlier this week, and there was discussion about the importance of curriculum, I was thinking about what a vital role our faculty members have and will play even more in the coming year in examining our curriculum and refining it in a time where the resources are not what they need to be. But let's thank Jennifer Cass for sharing a story of leadership as chair of the curriculum committee. Eve Hinckley is an adjunct member of our faculty as a librarian, and her story is about a class that sounds like a lot of fun. Through our Title V program as a Hispanic Serving Institution, the STARS program had a new class to help the students get up to speed very quickly in utilizing library resources. And for those of us who are over 30, the library is a very much different place than when we were students. And learning to use the technological resources and find things like when you search the New York Times historical directory on tsunami for the last 100 years, you find 0 entries because they were called tidal waves. Great experiences for our students learning how to use library technologies, and the collaboration among the faculty members throughout the library, responding and refining the course even as it's going on so that the students would know how to use the resources that they needed to be successful. And by the end of the class, not so much dialogue going on, but the sound of clicking and searching with the occasional question as students were using the materials in a way that would have been unimaginable at the start of that class. So let's thank Eve Hinckley for sharing another wonderful story. Our next story was provided by Jay Jackson, but it's in fairness, it's Carolyn Jackson's story and Emily's story just as well. And if I know Carolyn and Jay at all, Jay had some help in preparing the story, didn't you, Jay? Just a little. And Jay's story is about a student who was transferring, who happened to be his daughter, Emily. And the story begins where they're loading up the car, they have the iPod, all the tunes for the road trip, and I think you said a list of every In-N-Out burger from here to Westwood, because they were going to look at UCLA. And Jay talks about the wonderful adventure of going to visit a campus with his daughter, who is a Cabrillo student transferring, and obviously a success story to be evaluating places like UCLA and ultimately Cal, where she chose to attend. No offense to the UCLA-Cal, I know that there's a little rivalry there. But a wonderful story about a parent having a newfound realization of the importance of the work that he does professionally. That Jay had always worked with students, helping them transfer, and has always been a wonderful counselor and someone we have many, many student stories about helping. But that newfound appreciation from the perspective of being a parent and coming back with that understanding that we always need to be serving our students like caring parents. Jay and Carolyn, thanks for sharing the story. Carolyn, stand up. Another story from a parent, Rachel Spencer, on our governing board. This photo is from her son James's graduation at Gonzaga just this spring. And as a board member, as a parent, Rachel shares the story about how validating it was to see the transformation that happened to James from the time he graduated from Santa Cruz High to the time he successfully completed his degree at Gonzaga. And it really drove home to Rachel that we just can't wait to look at ways to have more students have this experience of being successful and earning their certificates and degrees. And Rachel is very excited about the collaborative that Cabrillo is partnering with our K-12 school districts throughout the county, and also with San Jose State University, UCSC, and Cal State University Monterey Bay, our Santa Cruz College commitment, because Rachel says the stakes are just too high not to move forward, because the consequences if students don't achieve success in earning their degrees is just unthinkable. So we're going to bring that enthusiasm of a parent with success in their own student to everything we do. And two of my favorite days of the year are today, where we get to honor our meritorious service winners, but maybe even better than today is graduation, when we see the success stories walking down the aisle, and it's very, very emotional to see the culmination of our work. And for those of you who haven't been able to be a part of graduation, I really would hope that everyone in this room will be part of graduation in the coming year. Tootie's story is that she started working as a student worker in financial aid when she was only 17, 2 or 3 years ago, right, Tootie? And found a career, the desire to help people. And now, several years later, she is assistant director of financial aid. And I want to get to the story within her story that is one of the kinds of stories that so many of you can tell, the story about a student whose name is James Nichols. And James came into financial aid looking for help. He didn't know what he wanted to do or how he was going to be able to do it. And Tootie saw in him the potential and helped him work out some of the initial financial arrangements to be able to attend, and also was able to help steer him towards Cabrillo's Academy for College Excellence. At that time, his life had fallen into some challenges that are shared by so many people in our community. He was battling addiction, in his case a heroin addiction, and he had acquired a virus that was destroying his legs, the flesh-eating virus, had gone through surgeries, and really needed a transformation in his life. And starting with helping him find a way to pay for his education, he went through the ACE program, and then at this point has a GPA of almost 3.9, and is one of so many transformative stories of our students. Our last story ties together so many of the themes we've been talking about all week exceedingly well, that our faculty member Francisco Anigas is on the right hand of the photo, although he looks like a student. That's a little annoying, Francisco, looking that young. His story is about his own transformation and about how he feels an obligation to help mentor others the way he was mentored. His family came to the United States from Jalisco, Mexico on July 2nd. And Francisco tells, as part of his story, on the second day they were here, his family went to see a 4th of July fireworks show and saw all of the promise of the American dream on display. And that's still a vivid image for him all these years later. Once the fireworks were open, though, the next day he and his brothers and sisters, 7 total, were out in the fields working. So when school started, he saw in education a wonderful opportunity to have a different life. And he put himself wholeheartedly into his education. And one of the breakthrough moments for him was when he went to San Joaquin Delta College and was involved in the Puente program, where he had mentors who were telling him, you can do this, you can do this, you can make a difference. So the mentors in his life had a profound impact on Francisco. Then he went on to complete his graduate degree and actually was teaching in the university level in Texas and wanted to come back to California and community colleges. And now he is back actively mentoring students in Puente and doing what he says is so important. So the lesson we can all give back by mentoring. And for those of you who were at our kickoff breakfast Friday, that was a theme that was echoed. Our basketball coach, Tony Markopoulos, said, if all of us would just take 5, if everyone here would take 5 students and be actively involved in their lives, think about what a difference that would make. And I appreciate Francisco for echoing that theme that's resounded throughout the week. Where is Francisco, so we can thank him for sharing his story? These are a few stories. I know there are many, many more wonderful stories. In the interest of time, we've even had to abbreviate some wonderful parts of the stories that were shared with me. and want to let you know that to read the full stories of all of these wonderful men and women, in our program, one slight correction, it says in the program Cabrillo Stories at Blogspot. It's actually cabrillostories.blogspot.com, and the full text of all of the stories who were shared today is there. And we also want to encourage you to share your story, and want to emphasize that our Sacred Bundle of Stories is not some time capsule and just an artifact of a past glory. These stories have all happened, but we all know that starting Monday with new students, there are going to be new stories to tell. And our Sacred Bundle is not just a museum piece, it's a living concept that's going to grow as we evolve. And I have no doubt that in the coming semester, you will have wonderful stories to share, and hope you'll do that. And maybe when you're wondering, is there hope, the way Jane Goodall did, you might go to the website and say, there absolutely is hope, and here are some examples of why. So my final thought for you is a question. What stories will we tell this year? We've talked about stories we tell about ourselves. We've talked about stories we tell about Cabrillo. Our students are going to be listening when they come back this semester to hear the stories we tell. I know at some colleges the story is going to be about doom and gloom and all the bad things that are happening to us, and those are true stories. But at Cabrillo, I know the focus is going to be about what we can do together to make this a great semester for our students and our community. And we will have tremendous stories of inspiration to share with one another in the coming year. So, I just can't tell you how proud I am of the group of people here today and how excited I am for the coming year. Let's have a good one.